The funny thing is, we don't need a lot of words in order to get a lot more. In fact, the less we say, the more we gain. Let me walk you through another example. I live in Toronto, Canada, where winters can suck. It is particularly challenging when you hate the snow as much as I do. And snow is a horrible thing to deal with because not only do you have to dig yourself out of your driveway to get to work on time, but you also have to make sure that your sidewalk is cleared within 12 hours of snowfall so that you don't get ticketed by the city and so that you don't get branded the neighborhood jerk. Now, it turns out after all of my years of condo living, when I moved into a proper house, I had forgotten how annoying it is to shovel a driveway. So when my first winter in that house started, I started looking for ways to get out of doing it myself. I did some homework and I found out to get a pro to come and do it, I should pay no more than $400 for the entire season. So I put up a post in a local Facebook group with all of the specs, and that's when things got interesting. One reply was particularly entertaining. One gentleman replied and said, "I would take care of your property for $800 for the season." I was pissed. I was so angry. What makes you think that I'm be stupid enough to pay double the growing rates? You think that you're going to be able to treat me like a statistic and get all aggressive on me just because I'm a woman? I don't think so. Don't insult me. But rather than lash out with all of the angry thoughts running through my brain, I pressed my mental pause button and replied with this: "Wow, that's a lot more expensive than other quotes. Thanks for reaching out, but that's too much for me." Appropriately, he came back to re-engage me saying, "So how much are you looking at spending?" I answered, "I've got students in the neighborhood willing to do it for $200. I was willing to pay for someone more reliable, but you're just way too far outside of my price range." Here I was thinking I had made the point that he was being ridiculous and he would move on, but instead he came back and said, "So how much do you want to spend? I live at Broadview and Girard, and the lowest I can go for you is $500. That was all in one text box. Let's break this down for a moment. First, he asked me a question, and before I have a chance to see that question, he answered it himself, which means, in essence, he was negotiating against himself. Second, he shared some valuable information with me that, if I needed to, I could say something to use to my advantage, like, "Great, then you can work me into the very beginning of your route." Finally, he said, "The lowest I can go for you is $500. He drew a line in the sand. It's like, cue the dramatic music, dun, 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 because I know the most I would spend is $400. And if the lowest he would do is $500, then that means that we can't close a deal. If he's being honest with me, which of course I doubt. So I put a polite end to the conversation saying, "Thanks, but that's still way too much. I'll have to settle for one of the kids." I put my phone away and I started conducting a workshop for a bunch of clients. And at the end of the day, after the workshop was over, I picked up my phone and realized that the negotiation wasn't, in fact, over. He was still going. $400. And because I hadn't seen that message, a number of hours had passed without a reply. And at 5:18 p.m., there was another message waiting for me. $300. You'll notice that I wasn't shouting or yelling any of the obscenities that were running through my mind earlier. In fact, the less I said, the more I was getting rewarded. And so much for the lowest I can go, because if this man went any lower, he'd be out of business in no time. Unfortunately, I see this happening all the time. I see smart, capable people psyching themselves out of a deal because they lack the confidence or skills to negotiate successfully. People will often sabotage themselves by saying too much or baiting themselves into an argument. The answer to preventing these moments of stress is quite simply, most often, to just stop talking. Give yourself a moment and allow that rational thought to come back into your brain before you start thinking and talking at the same time and talking yourself out of a deal.